Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it is that time once again to take a look at the biggest changes coming to the next patch, patch 7.16. There's a lot of buffs, a lot of nerfs, and more specifically even mages are being affected quite a bit, so expect the mid lane meta to shift by just a bit. But before we dive into the video, I have a quick sponsored message followed by an RP giveaway as a big thanks. So Haste is going to be a sponsor of this channel, and it is a program that tries to improve your overall latency and ping and essentially just reduce lag within the game you're playing, such as League of Legends or Overwatch. It is currently in free beta, and to be completely honest, the program is great, but it will have different results for every single person. For some people it'll work wonders, for some it won't work too well because your ping is already at its best. And simply put, the way Haste works is that it picks the best paths to take to reduce the overall ping, the jitter, the lag, and all that stuff that you get whenever playing a game. You can even do a speed test to see what kind of ping you'll get if you were to use the Haste program. So again, I do have a link down below to this program, completely free to try. Highly recommend checking it out to see how much it can help your ping and reduce it even further. And as a quick thanks for supporting my channel and the sponsors that I take, I'll be doing a $50 RP giveaway, so all you have to do is like the video and comment on it as well, and I'll be picking a random person from the comment section, so make sure for YouTube that I'm able to DM you and actually give you the card and the RP code. Good luck to everyone entering, but let's get on with the video. Alright, so the first champion that I want to talk about is going to be Brand, and Brand is actually getting an overall buff. Now the changes are going to be specific to his E ability, but they are going to be as follows. The mana cost has been lowered, the AP ratio has been increased by 5%, but to compensate, the base damage has actually been lowered by just a bit at every single rank. But it now has a new effect, one that I'm a little bit kind of unsure about as to what the purpose of it is, but it does read as follows. If cast on a minion or monster that is not ablaze, his E ability's cooldown is reduced to 3 seconds. So the only purpose I can see from this is to try and maybe last hit minions, or if you're playing in the jungle then it could be pretty decent as well, but other than that I don't really see the overall biggest purpose in the entire world for this. I mean, if you're doing Dragon or Baron, I guess it's pretty useful as well, but again, it is somewhat of a questionable change to which I am still trying to figure out the full purpose or the reasoning behind it. Either way though, Brand is receiving some slight buffs overall, so I mean it's a good thing regardless, but again, not the biggest buffs in the entire world and a very questionable new effect on his E. But following Brand, we have some nerfs coming over to Caitlyn. Now her Q ability is going to be nerfed to where the damage beyond the first target has been lowered from 67% down to 50%. And following this, the additional damage taken from headshot whenever they're activated by the trap is also going to be lowered at almost every single rank, but it'll average out back to 190 by rank 5. Which essentially means that if you want this ability to actually do somewhat decent damage, you're probably gonna have to start maxing it first. Now in my honest opinion, these nerfs to Caitlyn aren't all that big, and I feel like she will still be more or less in the same state as she currently is, which is to be around a mid-tier ADC. But next down the line, like I said, there are going to be a lot of major nerfs, and the first of which is going to be Cassiopeia, where the mana per level that she gets has actually been increased by 3, which is of course a buff, but her E ability got changed to where I think it's an overall nerf. Because the earlier ranks, it actually does more damage now, so rank 1 it'll do 5 more damage, rank 2 it's the same, but starting at rank 3 it'll actually do less and less damage, by rank 5 dealing 15 less base damage. Now again, obviously it's not the biggest nerf in the entire world, but since Cassiopeia is Twin Fang, her E ability is the first ability that you max, you are going to be feeling the nerfs a lot quicker. So even though it's not going to just simply destroy this champion, it will weaken her overall laning phase, especially as you start maxing your E ability, which you obviously will even after these nerfs. Next up, we have a very quick change happening to Corki, and it's going to be a nerf where the base AD on this champion has actually been lowered by 3. Now the reason that they put these out is kind of a mystery to me. I don't really think this will do a whole lot. I mean, it will of course weaken his laning phase by just a bit and his overall trade potential. It will of course also weaken the synergy that he has between Sheet and Trinity Force, since those items obviously work off of the base AD, not the overall total AD. So I mean, the nerf is a bit bigger than it seems at first glance, but regardless, it's still not the biggest thing in the entire world. I expected them to also maybe nerf his Q ability, maybe his E ability, or maybe even the package as well. But all in all, I mean, Corki is still going to be probably pretty strong regardless of this nerf in the mid lane. Obviously not as strong as he currently is, but should still be more or less a top contender for the mid lane pick. Following this, we have a quick buff happening to Fiora, who got completely over-nerfed a couple of patches ago, and Riot is slowly trying to bring her up to speed. The movement speed offered by her passive has actually been increased, and don't forget that the passive, in terms of the actual scaling, does work with the rank of her ultimate. But this is definitely going to help Fiora, especially late game, to finally be that 1v5 champion that she's always known to be, so this is going to help her stick on her target, because it's 45% rather than 30% now, which is quite a bit. Whether or not this will bring Fiora back into the meta is still the question because she is considered to be somewhat of a weak champion thanks to Bramble Vest essentially counting her in the laning phase. And I don't really think this is going to be fully enough to bring her completely back into the meta, but it should put her in a spot where picking her won't actually be detrimental to your team. Following this, we have a buff happening to one of the most hated assassins in League of Legends, Fizz. The cooldown on his E ability has actually been reduced to be only 16 seconds at rank 1 rather than 18, and it slowly gets less and less of a difference in cooldown as you rank up the ability, by rank 5 being at 10 seconds, which is the same as currently on the live servers. So the question here is, will Fizz potentially start maxing out another ability instead? I mean, maybe keeping his E ability rank 1 and maxing out Q instead, and then E could be a better option. If I had to guess, the chances are that you'll still max his E ability first, so the buff happening to his E won't really be too impactful. I mean, his level 1 will be pretty strong, I guess, stronger than currently, but as you rank up the E ability, the difference in cooldown offered is going to be less and less. So it's not the biggest buff in the entire world, and I don't think it'll make too much of a difference, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a buff regardless. But here's a nerf that I can agree on, the Galio. This champion is insanely strong. I mean, you just play him mid lane, you can play him top lane, just build essentially pure tank, and not only do you still do a lot of base damage thanks to your Q ability, which also scales off of percent damage, but you're also not only a fantastic tank, you have great peel, and you also have great initiation. You have just a lot of things in your kit that makes Galio easily one of the best champions in League of Legends at the very moment. Now, the nerf to him is going to be as follows. It's only going to be to his ultimates, but the cooldown has actually been increased by rank 1 and rank 2, and the allied damage reduction has also been lowered at ranks 2 and also rank 3. So they're giving him a slight nerf towards his tankiness and just his ultimate's effectiveness, because it is a very good ultimate, especially if you play him in the mid lane, since it's so easy to just kind of walk up the river and be in range to ult someone and just instantly join a fight other side of the map. But I feel like a nerf to maybe his Q ability or even his W ability or maybe his passive, at least one of those three, was also something that they should have done. But I mean, regardless, at least it's a nerf to the right area. Following that, we have another nerf happening to Leblanc. Now, Leblanc is kind of up and down, just almost like a Zir, where she's either insanely overpowered or she's pretty damn garbage. So for this patch, the nerf is going to be somewhat minor, but it is as follows. The Q ability's damage to minions has been lowered by 20%, which of course means one very simple thing. The wave clear combined with her W is going to take a little bit of a hit. What makes Leblanc really strong at the moment is the fact that she still has quite a bit of damage in her kit when it comes to just overall trading with the person that you're laning against or even throughout the team fights. But she's also very strong, a lot stronger than she should be honestly for an assassin when it comes to wave clear, considering she is a ranged champion to where she can wave clear faster than most champions and just instantly start roaming up and down. So this will obviously make wave clearing a little bit more difficult and will actually have to force you to get more AP or at least be a little bit more snowbally and ahead to wave clear as fast as you currently do in order to still have as much impact around the map. The next one is going to be a nerf to one of the strongest champions at the very moment, Maokai. The nerf I don't really think is all that good. I mean, it's only going to be to his E ability, where the percent max health as damage has been changed from 8% at all ranks to starting at 6%, but then going up to 8% by rank 5 once again. I don't really feel like sapling toss is the biggest thing that's an issue with this champion. I mean, the issue is the fact that he does so much damage, which I guess is part of the sapling toss, but just also how tanky he can be while dealing that damage. Personally, I think his ultimate covers way too much of a range. It shouldn't be as long as it currently is. Maybe the damage on his Q ability can be lowered by just a bit as well. But I mean, nerfing the damage on Sapling Toss is definitely a step in the right direction because he does do too much damage for how tanky he is, but I feel like they could have nerfed a couple of other things as well. Next up we have Orianna. Now Orianna has got to be one of the best champions for mid lane because she's just so strong. She has so many strong parts of her. She has a great laning phase, she has the shield, she's got great poke, she has insanely strong teamfight presence as well, and she truly just brings so much to the team that it's just hard to match her with many other champions. So the nerf to Orianna is as follows. The damage on her W has been lowered and the shield strength on her E ability has also been lowered, which is a pretty damn good nerf. My only concern is the fact that the actual damage that got reduced by these abilities, the W and the E, is just not enough. Maybe reducing her E ability's shield strength by 20 is not too bad, but only 10 reduction on the W is really not all that impactful. So will this be enough to bring Orianna down a couple of notches? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it'll obviously hit her a little bit and she will be definitely weaker, but I feel like she'll still be pretty much Orianna and still quite effective. But if they were to buff some other mages on top of this, then they will truly bring down Orianna's overall power and just her position within the meta. Now next up we have a buff happening to Sion, someone that Riot is trying to put back into the meta quite forcefully. Now, the first one is going to be a buff to his W, where the bonus health on enemy kills has been increased to 3 from 2. Following this, the damage on his ultimate, the maximum damage more specifically, has been increased by quite a bit. 100 at rank 1, 200 rank 2, and 300 rank 3. Now obviously in a realistic scenario, dealing his ultimate's damage at the max damage is not always going to happen, so I mean the buff is not as big as it actually seems, but at least it is a buff regardless, and maybe we'll start seeing this champion more frequently in League of Legends. But like I said, this patch is going to be the death to a lot of AP mid laners and most likely a shift in the meta for the mid lane, because there's going to be 2 more nerfs coming to 2 mid laners that are also very strong. The first of which is going to be Syndra. The AP ratio on her Q ability has been lowered by 10%, but to try and compensate, the AP ratio on her E ability has actually been increased by 10%. So losing but gaining 10% at the same time obviously seems like it's kind of redundant, right? But if you were to take a closer look, losing 10% on her Q ability means a lot more than gaining 10% on her E ability. Because her Q ability is her bread and butter, right? That's the main damage. That's what she used to really just harass people down. A lot of the time, you most likely won't even land your E's damage on the champion, because it's nowhere near as easy to land on enemies as the Q is, and just how spammable Q is as well. So I mean, overall a pretty decent nerf to Syndra, but at least they compensated by just a bit by buffing her E ability as well. Following this, Talia also received a little bit of a nerf, where the mana cost on her Q has been increased to 30 by rank 5, which is actually a lot. It's going to be nowhere near as spammable, no matter whether you're using it in the laning phase or later on in the game, where the Q ability essentially has no cooldown. This is a really good nerf, and I feel like this will actually hit Talia a lot more than you may initially think. So I think Talia is going to fall down quite a bit in terms of usefulness, and probably won't be as strong following this patch. Now the final champion change that I'll talk about is going to be towards Vi, where her ultimate's cooldown has actually been lowered at every single rank. This is going to be pretty useful for her because she's going to have a bit stronger early game pressure, and she'll just have more pressure throughout the game as well, because she is a point and click champion with her ultimate. Without it, she's not all that strong or impactful. Now a very quick nerf is also happening to Cinderhulk, which is of course the jungle item that most tanks get, which is going to be another indirect nerf to the tanky meta and all the tanky champions, which is going to be very, very good. So things like Zac, Maokai, Sejuani, Rammus. There's also going to be a new warded ping, which I'm not 100% sure if it's coming out this patch, but essentially is going to be a way to let your team know which area of the map is actually warded without having to type it out, which is a very annoying thing to do, which is a pretty cool addition. And last but not least, there's a whole bunch of new skins coming out. There's going to be 3 new arcade skins, there's going to be a new Kale skin, and there's also going to be a new rare Hecarim skin that you can only obtain through the Hex Tech loot. But either way guys, that's going to be it for this video. There you have it, the biggest changes coming to the next patch, patch 7.16. There's going to be a change in the meta for the mid lane without question whatsoever, a whole bunch of nerfs coming to the mages, a lot of great new skins coming out, and a lot of cool things to expect as well. So if you enjoyed the video, then let me know by hitting that like button, subscribe if you haven't, share the video with your friends, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.